When therapy dog Sarge started scratching frantically at Mrs. Henderson's nursing home window every Tuesday at 2 p.m., staff thought the old golden retriever was just excited to see his favorite resident. But Sarge had been a decorated military working dog for 8 years before retirement. His combat instincts had saved dozens of soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, and those instincts never truly went dormant. What Sarge was desperately trying to communicate through that window would uncover the most shocking elder abuse scandal in nursing home history, revealing how one woman's silent suffering had been hidden behind smiles, medication schedules, and visiting hour restrictions for over 15 years. Sunset Manor Nursing Home sat on a quiet hill overlooking the town of Cedar Ridge, Pennsylvania. With its white columns and perfectly manicured gardens, it looked like the kind of place where elderly residents spent their golden years in comfort and dignity. The facility had earned awards for excellence in senior care and maintained a spotless reputation in the community. Dr. Amanda Cross volunteered at Sunset Manor twice a week with her retired military working dog Sarge. The 8-year-old golden retriever had served 3 tours overseas as a bomb detection specialist, but after sustaining a leg injury from an IED explosion, he had been medically retired and retrained as a therapy animal. Sarge wasn't just any therapy dog, he was a veteran with PTSD training who specialized in working with elderly patients who had experienced trauma. His gentle nature and intuitive understanding of human distress had made him beloved by residents and staff alike during his 2 years of volunteer service. For 8 years of military service, Sarge had been trained to detect danger in the most subtle forms, changes in human behavior that might indicate concealed threats, environmental anomalies that could signal improvised explosive devices, and most importantly, the ability to sense human distress even when people were trying to hide it. But the truly shocking thing is, Sarge's behavior at Mrs. Henderson's window wasn't excitement or playfulness. It was the same alert behavior he had exhibited in combat situations when he detected immediate danger to human life. Every Tuesday at exactly 2 p.m., Sarge would pull Dr. Cross toward the east wing of the nursing home where 87-year-old Margaret Henderson had lived for the past 15 years. Mrs. Henderson was known as one of the facility's most pleasant residents, always smiling, never complaining, and consistently expressing gratitude for the excellent care she received. But when Sarge approached Mrs. Henderson's ground floor window, his behavior would transform completely. The gentle therapy dog would become intensely focused, scratching at the window with increasing urgency while whining in a low, persistent tone that Dr. Cross had never heard from him during their therapy work. "Easy, Sarge," Dr. Cross would say, trying to redirect his attention to other residents who were eager to pet him. But Sarge would resist, continuing to scratch at the glass while maintaining eye contact with Mrs. Henderson, who would smile and wave from her chair by the window. The nursing home staff found Sarge's behavior amusing. "Mrs. Henderson is his favorite," explained charge nurse Carol Martinez. "He just loves her so much that he gets excited when he sees her. It's really quite sweet." But Dr. Cross, who had worked with military working dogs for over a decade, recognized something different in Sarge's behavior. This wasn't excitement or affection, this was alert behavior, the same focused intensity Sarge had displayed when detecting hidden explosives or sensing imminent danger in combat zones. It was at this exact moment that everything changed, because Dr. Cross realized that Sarge wasn't trying to get Mrs. Henderson's attention, he was trying to get help for her. The breakthrough came during a Tuesday visit when Dr. Cross positioned herself at a different angle from Mrs. Henderson's window. From this new vantage point, she could see what Sarge had been detecting all along. Mrs. Henderson wasn't waving at them, she was making small desperate gestures with her hands while maintaining her smile, trying to communicate distress without alerting the staff member who was always present during visiting hours. "Mrs. Henderson's hands," Dr. Cross whispered to herself, watching the elderly woman's fingers tap against her wheelchair in what appeared to be a deliberate pattern. The movement was subtle, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, but it was consistent and purposeful. Sarge had been trained to detect human distress in situations where people couldn't speak freely or call for help. In military operations, this skill was used to identify civilians who were being held against their will, or soldiers who were injured but unable to communicate their condition. The same training that had saved lives in combat zones was now alerting him to a civilian in distress. Dr. Cross began documenting Sarge's behavior and Mrs. Henderson's hand movements, using her veterinary training to make detailed observations that could be presented to authorities if necessary. What she discovered was a sophisticated communication system that Mrs. Henderson had been using for years, desperately trying to signal for help during the only times when outsiders were present in her room. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet, because when Dr. Cross finally decoded Mrs. Henderson's hand signals, they spelled out a message that would expose systematic abuse, financial exploitation, and medical neglect that had been carefully concealed for over 15 years. Henderson had been using a simplified version of American Sign Language to spell out the words "help me" and "pills" during every Tuesday visit for the past 6 months. Her movements were slow and subtle enough to avoid detection by nursing home staff, but consistent enough for a trained military working dog to recognize as distress signals. The more Dr. Cross observed, the more disturbing details emerged. Mrs. Henderson's excellent care was actually a carefully orchestrated deception designed to hide the fact that she was being systematically over-medicated to keep her compliant, while her considerable pension and Social Security payments were being diverted to nursing home administrators. She's been trying to tell us for years, Dr. Cross realized, watching Sarge maintain his vigil by the window while Mrs. Henderson continued her desperate signaling. The woman's constant smile wasn't contentment. It was the result of sedative medications that made it difficult for her to control her facial expressions, while still allowing her to maintain enough motor function to attempt communication. The conspiracy involved multiple levels of nursing home staff, from administrators who altered medical records to create false documentation of Mrs. Henderson's happy condition to nurses who administered unnecessary medications to prevent her from being able to speak clearly to visitors or family members. But the truly shocking thing is, Mrs. Henderson wasn't the only victim. Sarge's intense focus on her window had led Dr. Cross to investigate other residents who displayed similar signs of over-medication and suspicious financial arrangements. The investigation expanded when Dr. Cross brought Sarge through other sections of the nursing home and observed his behavior around different residents. His training to detect human distress in concealed situations made him uniquely qualified to identify victims who were being systematically silenced through medication or intimidation. In the memory care unit, Sarge exhibited similar alert behavior around 3 residents whose families had been told they were too confused to communicate meaningfully. In the long-term care ward, he showed intense interest in 2 residents whose financial arrangements seemed unusually complex according to overheard staff conversations. Dr. Cross realized that Sunset Manor's award-winning reputation was built on systematically silencing residents who might report abuse, using a combination of over-medication, financial exploitation, and carefully controlled visiting procedures that prevented meaningful communication between residents and outsiders. The investigation required cooperation between the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the FBI's Elder Fraud Unit, and local law enforcement agencies specializing in financial crimes. Dr. Cross's documentation of Sarge's behavior and Mrs. Henderson's communication attempts provided the initial evidence needed to obtain search warrants for the facility's medical and financial records. Wait a second, don't miss this detail, because when investigators finally interviewed Miss Henderson without nursing home staff present, she revealed that she had been trying to report abuse and financial theft for over 15 years, but had been systematically silenced through forced medication and threats of isolation. Mrs. Henderson, whose mental capacity was completely normal when she wasn't over-medicated, explained that nursing home administrators had been stealing her monthly pension payments while providing her with minimal care and excessive sedatives. She had witnessed similar abuse of other residents but had been prevented from reporting it by staff who monitored all her communications and restricted her access to phones or visitors. "I tried to tell everyone who came to visit," Mrs. Henderson explained to investigators, "but they always had someone watching, and the medications made it so hard to talk clearly. When I saw that beautiful dog getting upset at my window, I knew he understood what I was trying to say." The financial investigation revealed that nursing home administrators had been systematically stealing from residents for over a decade, using forged documents to redirect pension payments, Social Security benefits, and family contributions to personal accounts. The total theft exceeded $2.3 million across 47 residents over 15 years. The medical investigation discovered that residents were being given unnecessary sedatives and psychiatric medications to keep them compliant and prevent them from reporting abuse. Many residents who had been labeled as confused or difficult were actually mentally competent individuals who were being chemically restrained to prevent them from communicating with family members or authorities. It was at this exact moment that everything changed, because the investigation revealed that Mrs. Henderson had been maintaining detailed mental records of the abuse for 15 years, memorizing names, dates, and financial details while waiting for someone who would understand her desperate attempts to communicate. Mrs. Henderson's memory, which had remained sharp despite years of forced medication, provided investigators with detailed information about the criminal conspiracy that involved 12 staff members, including the facility director, head of nursing, and chief financial officer. Her ability to recall specific incidents of abuse, theft, and cover-ups made her the key witness in the largest elder abuse prosecution in Pennsylvania history. The investigation also revealed that Sarge's military training had made him uniquely qualified to detect the deception. His experience identifying concealed threats and hidden distress had allowed him to recognize Mrs. Henderson's communication attempts as genuine emergency signals rather than random movements or excitement. Sarge saw through 15 years of carefully constructed deception in a matter of weeks, explained FBI Special Agent Robert Chen, who led the elder fraud investigation. His training to detect hidden dangers and human distress in controlled environments made him the perfect witness to expose this systematic abuse. You won't believe it, but the prosecution of the Sunset Manor conspiracy led to federal legislation strengthening protections for nursing home residents and requiring independent oversight of facilities that serve vulnerable elderly populations. The Sarge's law legislation established mandatory protocols for detecting and reporting elder abuse, including requirements for unannounced inspections, independent financial auditing, and specialized training for law enforcement officers in recognizing signs of systematic elder exploitation. Ms. Henderson's courage in maintaining her silent resistance for 15 years inspired advocacy groups nationwide to develop new methods for detecting elder abuse and providing communication alternatives for residents who are being systematically silenced. Her story became a symbol of the resilience of elderly Americans who refuse to accept abuse even in the most controlled environments. The nursing home industry implemented new standards for medication management and financial transparency, designed to prevent the systematic over-medication and financial exploitation that had been used to silence residents at Sunset Manor. What you've seen so far is nothing, because Sarge's detection methods have been studied and replicated by therapy dog programs nationwide, with specialized training for detecting elder abuse in institutional settings. The Sarge protocol describes specific behaviors that therapy dogs exhibit when detecting systematic abuse or distress in nursing home environments. Dogs trained in these methods have been deployed to over 200 facilities nationwide, leading to the discovery of abuse and neglect cases that might otherwise have remained hidden. Sarge's success led to federal funding for therapy dog programs that specialize in elder care, with particular emphasis on using dogs trained in military or law enforcement techniques to detect concealed abuse in institutional settings. These programs have identified hundreds of cases of elder exploitation and medical neglect. The partnership between military working dogs and elder care has created a new model for protecting vulnerable populations who may be unable to advocate for themselves or communicate with family members and authorities. But the truly shocking thing is, Mrs. Henderson's case revealed that elder abuse often involves sophisticated deception designed to prevent detection by family members, regulators, and law enforcement agencies who might otherwise intervene to protect victims. The systematic nature of the abuse at Sunset Manor demonstrated that elder exploitation is often an organized criminal enterprise rather than isolated incidents of neglect or mistreatment. The conspiracy required coordination between multiple staff members, falsified documentation, and carefully controlled communication to prevent victims from reporting abuse. Ms. Henderson's 15-year resistance to systematic silencing inspired changes in how elder abuse investigations are conducted, with greater emphasis on detecting nonverbal communication and understanding how victims may be prevented from speaking freely about their experiences. The case also highlighted the importance of therapy animals in detecting abuse that human observers might miss, particularly in institutional settings where staff have been trained to present a positive appearance to outsiders while concealing systematic mistreatment. 5 years after Sarge's detection led to the Sunset Manor investigation, Mrs. Henderson continues to live independently with support services, having recovered both her financial assets and her freedom to communicate without supervision. At 92 years old, she has become a national advocate for elder rights and nursing home reform. "Sarge saved my life," Mrs. Henderson says during speaking engagements where she advocates for stronger elder abuse protections. "For 15 years, I tried to tell people what was happening, but nobody understood until a dog who had served in war recognized that I was still fighting a battle." Sarge, now retired from active therapy work at age 11, continues to visit Mrs. Henderson regularly at her new home. Their friendship represents the bond between a veteran who learned to detect hidden dangers
and a woman who never stopped fighting for her freedom despite years of systematic silencing. Wait a second, don't miss this detail, because Sarge's offspring have inherited his exceptional ability to detect human distress in controlled environments, creating a new generation of therapy dogs specifically trained to protect vulnerable elderly populations. 2 of Sarge's puppies are working with elder abuse investigation units, while 3 others serve in specialized therapy programs designed to detect abuse and neglect in institutional settings. The genetic component of Sarge's detection abilities has led to breeding programs that combine military working dog bloodlines with therapy dog temperaments. The success of Sarge's lineage in detecting elder abuse has created new opportunities for protecting vulnerable populations through animal-assisted investigation techniques that complement traditional law enforcement methods. Dr. Cross continues her work with therapy dogs in elder care settings, but her role has expanded to include training law enforcement officers and social workers in recognizing signs of systematic abuse that might be detected by specially trained animals before becoming apparent to human observers. It was at this exact moment that everything changed, because Sarge's story inspired a new understanding of how military working dog skills can be adapted to protect civilian populations who are vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. Today, 8 years after Sarge first scratched at Mrs. Henderson's window, his detection methods have been incorporated into elder abuse prevention programs nationwide. The partnership between military working dogs and vulnerable population protection has created new models for detecting hidden abuse in institutional settings. Sarge's legacy continues through specialized therapy dog programs that serve over 500 nursing homes and assisted living facilities, providing both emotional support for residents and detection capabilities for identifying systematic abuse that might otherwise remain hidden from regulators and family members. The integration of military working dog techniques with civilian protection programs has demonstrated that skills developed for detecting hidden dangers in combat zones can be effectively adapted to protect vulnerable populations who may be unable to advocate for themselves or communicate freely with potential helpers. Cross and Sarge, though both showing their age, continue to work together in developing new protocols for detecting elder abuse through animal-assisted investigation techniques. Their partnership represents the evolution of military working dog skills into civilian applications that protect those who are most vulnerable to exploitation and systematic abuse. The Sarge Foundation, established with donations from grateful families and elder rights organizations, provides funding for therapy dog programs that specialize in detecting abuse and neglect in institutional settings. The foundation has trained over 150 dog and handler teams in techniques developed from Sarge's original detection methods. Remember, sometimes the most sophisticated deception can be uncovered by those who are trained to detect hidden dangers and recognize distress signals that others might dismiss as normal behavior. Sarge's story reminds us that protecting vulnerable populations requires vigilance, specialized training, and the wisdom to recognize that unusual behavior from trained animals might indicate serious problems that human observers have missed. His legacy continues through every elderly person who remains safe because someone was trained to detect the subtle signs of systematic abuse. Thank you for following Sarge's incredible journey from military service to elder protection hero. His story proves that the skills developed to protect soldiers in combat can be adapted to protect civilians who are vulnerable to exploitation, and that sometimes the most important discoveries are made by those who never stop listening for calls for help. We want to hear from you. Have you ever noticed unusual behavior from a pet that seemed to indicate something was wrong? Do you think therapy dogs should receive specialized training to detect elder abuse in institutional settings? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If Sarge's story inspired you, please share this video with someone who believes in protecting vulnerable elderly populations and ensuring that those who cannot speak for themselves still have advocates. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of animal heroes who dedicate their lives to protecting those who need help the most. Sometimes saving a life begins with simply refusing to ignore a dog who is trying to tell you that someone is in danger, even when that danger has been carefully hidden behind smiles and institutional respectability.